Liverpool, 1995. A Colombian trafficker wakes up zip-tied on his own floor, watching a masked man bag $200,000 of his cash. He can't call the police. Reporting the robbery means confessing to trafficking. By morning, he's not alone. A Turkish heroin network loses $500,000. A local crime family watches their stash house get cleaned out. Then the cartels realize it's the same man. Every robbery, every humiliation. They pool $100,000 for his head. They send hitmen from Amsterdam. They firebomb his mother's house. But he doesn't run, he walks onto television. Now he's shaking hands with police chiefs, speaking at anti-violence rallies, advising politicians on how to stop gang crime while still robbing dealers at night. The British government is protecting him from his own victims, and they have no idea. For 20 years, Stephen French stole more from drug cartels than any law enforcement operation in British history. Then, one afternoon, he pistol-whipped an ordinary businessman over a parking space. How did one man turn the underworld into prey? And what finally brought the devil down? Liverpool, 1992. The city's back alleys run thick with heroin and dirty cash. Drug lords strut like untouchable royalty, gold chains swinging and bodyguards packing heat beneath leather jackets. Ordinary citizens fear them. The police rarely land prosecutions, but working the door at a nightclub on Bold Street, a 26-year-old bouncer named Stephen French spots something everyone else missed. He watches dealers bully shaking addicts, flash wads of 50s, and go back to their Mercedes. He also watches rival gangs occasionally rob those dealers. And he notices a critical weakness. When a crew of masked thieves storms a crack den down the block and snatches the stash, the dealers don't dial 999 because they can't. Reporting the crime would mean confessing their own. Here, French realizes that drug barons operate outside the law, which means they're outside its protection too. A slow grin spreads across his face. French stands 6'4" and holds European and world kickboxing titles. He possesses the physical tools. Now he has the insight. In this jungle of vice, even apex predators can become prey. One rainy night, French tests his theory. A low-level cocaine pusher counts cash in a padlocked kitchen behind a pub. The door explodes inward. French wants tax. Before the dealer can reach his knife, French is on him, smashing furniture, eyes wild. He's unarmed but so ferocious that the dealer's muscle freezes mid-lunge. French's voice drops to a murderous whisper. "Go on, call the police, I'll wait." The dealer's eyes widen. He knows he can't. Minutes later, French strolls into the rain with £5,000 and a new identity. Inside, his victims sit bruised and bewildered. They can't report a thing. They can only warn their friends. The devil just came calling. French has discovered a glitch in the criminal code. If he's violent enough, terrifying enough, dealers will hand over their fortunes rather than risk a war they can't win. Reputation, he realizes, is currency. Build a big enough legend, and he won't even need to throw a punch. Adrenaline surges as he peels out in a battered car. This wasn't a one-off robbery. It was a proof of concept. If he can do this alone to a small-time pusher, what could he do to the cartels with a proper crew? But scaling from petty robbery to industrial extortion requires resources French doesn't have. Where will he find men willing to declare war on the underworld? And what happens when the cartels realize the same ghost keeps hitting them? Mid-1990s. French has assembled a crew of enforcers in black tactical gear. Together, they form a pirate task force targeting Liverpool's booming drug trade. French runs it like a corporation. He scouts targets for weeks, mapping safe houses, timing courier arrivals, and counting guards. His crew drills breach and clear tactics until they can subdue a room in seconds. French acquires police radios and surplus body armor. Kick down a door yelling, "Armed police!" and dealers hesitate for one critical heartbeat. In that split second, the Devil's crew overpowers them. Each raid unfolds with surgical precision. One night in 1995, a Colombian cartel's Liverpool safehouse receives an unwelcome visit. A steel door explodes off its hinges. Smoke grenades roll across the floor. Traffickers barely have time to curse before laser sights sweep the fog. 90 seconds later, it's over. Henchmen lie zip-tied and whimpering. French strides through the mist, silhouette backlit by a flickering hallway light. He nods once. His men begin bagging bricks of cocaine and bundles of cash. Before leaving, French spray paints a message on the wall. Tax paid. It's not just a robbery, it's a declaration. The profits are astronomical. By targeting bigger dealers, from local heroin wholesalers to international smugglers, French's tax raids yield 6- and 7-figure hauls. Within a few years, he's quietly richer than many of the kingpins he's robbing. He drives a sleek Jaguar registered in a relative's name, wears tailored suits, and claims a modest income on paper. Meanwhile, his legend grows with each retelling. Whispers spread that the Devil once walked into a gang's den alone and emerged with their entire week's earnings. That he hung a dealer upside down off a balcony until the man begged to hand over his stash. That his preferred punishment involves a red-hot clothing iron pressed against flesh. French couldn't ask for better advertising. He plants some of these gruesome tales himself. Others, the underworld invents on its own. Psychological warfare. If terror precedes him, half the battle is won before he kicks in the door. Drug gangs begin to fear French more than the real police. After all, cops just arrest you. French tortures you. And unlike the police, French has no rules. What do you do when the monster under your bed is real and knows you can't call for help? You hide, fortify, and pay him off. Reputation becomes a weapon more powerful than any gun. Soon, French doesn't need to brawl at every robbery. Sometimes his crew storms in and the dealers simply freeze, trembling fingers pointing to where the cash is kept. But the Devil's success attracts danger. By 1998, he's effectively declared war on the entire underworld of northwest England. Every pound he steals is a pound they lose, and an insult to their authority. Eventually, the biggest kingpins connect the dots. All these robberies share the same tactics, the same name. Contracts circulate in back rooms, £100,000 for French's head. A coalition of furious drug lords forms a rare alliance. Kill the taxman. French's glitch in the code is closing. The predators are adapting. They hire hitmen, beef up security, booby-trap stash houses. The Devil's next collection could easily turn into a bloodbath. French senses the tide shifting. At each job now, he wears heavier body armor. He rotates safe houses and never sleeps in the same place twice. 2 associates are beaten to death when caught alone. Another vanishes without a trace. French attends their funerals in dark glasses, looking over his shoulder. He's still the richest man in the room, but now he's also the most hunted. How long can one man take on the mafias of Europe before they catch up? French needs an edge beyond guns and muscle. He's always been a strategist. And now, backed into a corner, he hatches his boldest plan yet. To survive, Stephen French will pull off a vanishing act in plain sight. But how do you disappear while remaining visible to millions? And what psychological price does that double life extract? A gangster's normal response to a bounty on his head is to burrow deeper underground. New identity, safe house in the hills, and permanent shadows. French does the opposite. In the early 2000s, He emerges from the underworld with a radiant smile, a pressed suit, and a new audience: television cameras. The devil reinvents himself as a community crusader. He starts appearing on local news panels as an anti-gun campaigner, decrying the very gang violence he once perpetrated. He shakes hands with Liverpool politicians and even consults with police on getting weapons off the streets. The audacity is breathtaking. A fox campaigning for better henhouse security, and the public devours it. French is articulate, passionate, persuasive on camera. Who better to warn kids about gang life than a reformed gangster who's lived it? He speaks of finding God, of turning his back on evil ways, and is often photographed flanked by pastors and community leaders. To the average citizen, Stephen French looks like a street-smart savior, a rare figure who knows the gritty reality and now wants to help. Behind this saintly act lies a brilliant tactic: asymmetrical warfare. By becoming a minor celebrity and do-gooder, French makes himself untouchable. If an assassin guns him down now, it won't be a gangland footnote. It will be front-page news. The full weight of British law enforcement would rain down on the perpetrators. Every politician French has shaken hands with would demand justice for their anti-crime colleague. French has draped himself in the Union Jack and a halo, using the government as his unwitting bodyguard. Go ahead, kill me now, he thinks, and watch how fast MI5 kicks down every cartel door in revenge. No kingpin wants that heat. As French anticipated, the hit contracts quietly evaporate. The risk of eliminating him now far outweighs any reward. And French doesn't stop at media appearances. He positions himself as a mediator between gangs, brokering peace talks in neighborhoods torn by turf wars. This boosts his public image further, while placing him at the center of the action, privy to every gang's business. He gathers intel under the guise of mentorship: who's moving weight where, who's feuding with whom. Some officials even praise him for doing what the police couldn't, getting rival crews to shake hands. In reality, French is playing all sides. By day, he's a peacemaker. By night, he's still quietly skimming and taxing, though far more selectively. Perhaps he's not kicking down doors personally anymore. Why would he, when he can manipulate younger gang members into paying tribute in exchange for mediation favors? He's created a protection racket wrapped in a charity bow, one of the greatest cons the underworld has ever seen. By 2008, the con reaches its peak. Stephen French appears on Danny Dyer's Deadliest Men, a documentary series on Bravo, as a reformed hard man. He earns a new moniker in the press: the Fighting Preacher. He speaks at anti-violence rallies flanked by mothers of shooting victims. He helps launch youth boxing programs to steer kids away from gangs. The police, who once would have arrested him on sight, now nod approvingly as he talks about cleaning up the city. French basks in the spotlight's safety, but it comes at a cost. By portraying the saint while still occasionally being the devil, he's living two lives in lethal parallel. The cognitive dissonance grows. Late at night, when the cameras are gone, French sits in his expensive penthouse, purchased with cash in a relative's name, and pours a glass of whiskey. He stares at his own reflection in the dark window. Who is he now? The devil or the preacher? His eyes twitch at shadows. He's gotten what he wanted, untouchable status, but he's never felt more paranoid. Every camera flash makes him flinch, hand instinctively moving toward the knife he still hides on his person. Each day he tells youths to avoid crime. He wonders if one of those youths is secretly sent by the cartels to infiltrate his circle. The public shield has protected his body, but it's piercing his mind. Then, like a hairline crack spreading through glass, the fracture widens. French starts seeing enemies everywhere, even where there are none. A harmless teenager staring a second too long at a community meeting might be an assassin scoping him out. A police officer who frowns during his anti-gun speech might know something. The pressure builds inside his head, a creeping sense that the walls are closing in. On the surface, he smiles for the cameras and shakes hands warmly. But inside, the devil stirs, restless and irritated at playing the angel. How long before the mask slips? And when it does, will anyone survive the explosion? For nearly a decade, Stephen French balanced on a knife's edge, devil at night, saint by day. But the system he built is static, and the man himself is volatile. Eventually, the lie of his redemption crumbles under the weight of ego and paranoia. By the early 2000s, French struts around Liverpool as if he's invincible. The police chiefs still shake his hand at charity events. The gangsters still mostly steer clear. In French's mind, this means he can do anything. And that's exactly what makes him dangerous. The shift is subtle at first, a glint of arrogance that wasn't there before, a sneer when a reporter questions his past. Then it grows. French starts throwing his weight around in broad daylight, even among regular citizens, people who aren't in the underworld, who could call the police. He's gotten so used to fear as currency that he can't stop spending it. One afternoon outside a cafe in an upscale district, French gets into a dispute with a local businessman over a parking spot. The old Stephen French might have let it slide with a charming smile. The devil has had enough of pretending. French steps out of his £100,000 Aston Martin and fixes the man with a predatory stare. "Do you know who I am?" Before the poor guy can answer, French pistol whips him across the jaw with a handgun that materialized from nowhere. The man crumples, bleeding and astonished. A parking spot, lunchtime traffic, and French just acted like it was a gangland turf war. News of this brazen assault spreads fast. French has finally done what was once unthinkable, given the police a reason to come after him. A supposed community hero caught on CCTV knocking out an ordinary businessman with an imitation pistol. A public relations catastrophe for the authorities who embraced him. Internally, Merseyside police grit their teeth. They'd tolerated French, even used him, as long as he behaved. Now he's crossed back into thug territory, out in the open, where they can't ignore it. The hypocrisy is too blatant. A prominent anti-gun campaigner attacking someone with a gun. Simultaneously, the old underworld sharks smell blood. The cartels and gangsters who hated French see that he's slipping. If the police turn on him, perhaps the shield has cracked. Perhaps now is the time to settle scores. French senses this viscerally. His paranoia, once background noise, becomes a deafening roar. He starts carrying weapons again around the clock, despite his public stance against them. A machete in his car boot, a knife in his sock. That air pistol always within reach. He can't sleep, convinced every rustle outside is a hitman scaling the wall. He moves into the Liverpool Hilton Hotel, renting a permanent suite under an alias. Swanky, public, cameras at every elevator. A place he believes assassins would hesitate to strike. Also, not coincidentally, a 5-minute walk from police headquarters. But none of it eases his mind. French's life has become a paradox of fear. He used terror as a weapon to control others, and now it controls him. In quiet moments, he rants to himself that the cartels are coming, that shadowy figures are stalking him. Some threats are real. His house was petrol-bombed. His family received death threats. But some threats exist only in the fevered corners of his psyche. His closest associates notice the change. The once calculating mastermind is now erratic, hair-trigger violent, prone to irrational grandiosity. He still talks about his old glitch-in-the-code trick as if it makes him invincible, yet he jumps at shadows. Finally, the pressure cooker bursts. February 21st, 2013. That businessman from the parking lot incident, a brash entrepreneur named Paul, refuses to be intimidated. He's pressing charges and taunting French via text message, perhaps unaware of just how dangerous a game he's playing. French is incensed. A civilian daring to punk the devil? Paul's messages escalate from legal threats to personal insults, calling French a washed-up fraud. French's pride won't allow this. In his paranoid state, he interprets everything as a death threat. So he does what he's done so many times before. He arms up for war. In broad daylight, French marches to Il Palazzo, a downtown office complex on Water Street, where he operates a debt collection agency called Opus. Paul has agreed to meet there to settle the dispute. Under his immaculate suit, French straps on a bulletproof vest. In his pocket, that Sig Sauer air pistol, freshly loaded with a CO2 cartridge, indistinguishable from a real 9mm. In a bag, an 8-inch machete. He's walking into a confrontation armed for combat, convinced he's about to face an assassination attempt. He doesn't realize the rules of the game have changed, and this time, French is completely out of his depth. What happens when the devil meets someone who refuses to fear him? And what forces will that confrontation unleash? February 21st, 2013. Stephen French steps out of the elevator at Il Palazzo, heart pounding. The lobby is polished marble, a lone receptionist at a curved desk. Across the room, Paul stands waiting with clenched fists. He didn't come alone. Two colleagues linger nearby, arms folded. French's eyes flicker. Are those hitmen? The paranoid swirl in his mind offers no clarity. French and Paul lock eyes. What was meant to be a conversation instantly devolves into a shouting match, each accusing the other of disrespect and ruin. Years ago, French would have kept his cool and let fear do the work. Today, he's far past that. Paul steps forward, jabbing a finger toward French's chest. The two colleagues move as if to back him up. French's mind snaps to a dark place. This is an ambush. In one swift motion, he whips out the Sig Sauer from his jacket. Everyone in the lobby freezes. The receptionist's eyes go wide. She ducks under her desk with a stifled scream. French snarls, "Back off!" Paul's face drains of color. He wasn't expecting a gun. French sees the fear, and it's intoxicating, familiar. The devil has fully taken over. He pistol whips Paul across the face with a crack, dropping him to the floor in a spray of blood. One of Paul's colleagues lunges, but French swings the gun toward him, and he skitters back, hands raised. French's voice booms through the lobby. "You think I'm playing? I'll kill you, all of you." For a heartbeat, it looks like French still owns the room through fear. But fate intervenes. Unbeknownst to French, a silent alarm has been tripped. The receptionist hit a panic button. Armed units are already scrambling to Il Palazzo. French, breathing heavy, drags Paul by the collar across the lobby floor, ranting about how he should have finished this from the start. His plan, if there was one, is falling apart. There's no bag of drug money here to collect, no crew backing him up. This is a public meltdown, and it's about to get worse. An authoritative voice echoes from just outside the glass doors. "Armed police, drop the weapon!" In an instant, French's empire of fear crumbles. Uniformed officers with guns drawn swarm the entrance. For perhaps the first time in his life, Stephen French finds himself on the opposite end of the exact scenario he used to orchestrate. He hesitates, the air pistol still in his grip. Do they know it's fake? Will they shoot? Paul, bloodied, scrambles away on all fours. French is alone in the middle of the lobby, surrounded by glass walls. Pedestrians on the street outside are pulled back by police, forming a stunned crowd. French backs up slowly, gun still in hand. The officers can't tell it's an imitation. Laser sights fix on his chest. He's trapped in a literal fishbowl, the whole city watching. For 90 tense minutes, French paces and shouts, alternating between threats and pleas. Negotiators try to talk him down. He's agitated, swinging from bravado to paranoid claims that they're trying to end him, that he had no choice. At one point, he edges near the doors, then bolts, dashing through startled officers. He's on the street now, adrenaline in overdrive. Sirens wail anew. This isn't a contained lobby incident anymore. It's a manhunt in the heart of Liverpool. French sprints through traffic and alleys, eventually making his way toward the River Mersey. Tourists near the Museum of Liverpool watch in amazement as a man in a tailored suit, looking every bit the respectable businessman, frantically tosses a bundle into the gray water. The bundle plunks and sinks. That was the gun and machete, his last assets now useless at the bottom of the river. Moments later, armed police corner French at the water's edge. He raises his hands. Officers tackle him to the ground. The devil is in handcuffs. In the courtroom, French's carefully constructed dual identity is stripped bare. Prosecutors outline how Liverpool's devil built a career on robbing and torturing drug dealers. Past crimes surface as witnesses finally speak. French sits in the dock, jaw clenched, as the litany of his deeds is read. There's no mythical aura now, just a 53-year-old man in a cheap suit, looking small and tired. The media revels in the hypocrisy. Anti-crime campaigner caught with a gun and blade, terrorizing a citizen. The judge, incensed by French's sanctimony, calls him out directly for his two-faced life, citing his participation in high-profile anti-weapon campaigns. "What you did was more akin to a gangster than a businessman," the judge scolds. In a final bid for mercy, French writes a letter from his jail cell to the Liverpool Echo. He signs it as St. French, formerly the Devil, now the Fighting Preacher, hoping to salvage a shred of his redeemed persona. He apologizes to the whole of Merseyside for one day's madness and admits he is a flawed man. He claims he truly feared for his life, that the man he pistol-whipped was a punk who would not leave him be, and insists that beating him with the gun saved his own life. The public is unconvinced. The letter reads as half apology, half self-justification. The judge isn't swayed either. Stephen French is sentenced to 3 years in prison for possessing an imitation firearm and a deadly weapon. As French is led out of court in handcuffs, the old kingpins of Liverpool, those still alive or not behind bars, share a collective smirk. The devil who robbed them is finally off the board, neutralized not by their hand, but by his own undoing. The glitch in the code has been patched. No copycat has since risen to fill French's shoes. His reign ended not in a blaze of underworld glory, but in a mundane courthouse with a judge's lecture. Stephen French discovered that you can hack the system and outsmart both the underworld and the law. But you cannot outrun your own psychology. The very fear he wielded for power turned inward and destroyed him from within. He built an empire on the principle that criminals couldn't call for help. He never considered that the same isolation might apply to him. In the end, the devil proved that the most dangerous enemy isn't the cartel or the police. It's the monster you become when you stare into the abyss long enough that it starts staring back. If French's story shows how one man exploited a loophole in criminal psychology, there's another tale that reveals what happens when a nurse tries the same trick. You can check it out right there.